And welcome back to Sharing Our Cultures. Joining me now is Nabila Qureshi, and she's a master's student in the Faculty of Medicine, Community Health. Welcome to Sharing Our Cultures.
Thank you so much.
Yes, can you tell us a little bit about your research work at university?
So I'm in the Faculty of Medicine in the Division of Community Health and Humanities, and my research is with refugee youth that live in St. John's. I'm exploring what their first few years or their early resettlement days are like, and the impact it has on their sense of well-being.
Okay, that's very important research, particularly as we have so many immigrants coming into the province now.
Absolutely.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you have any findings yet from the research?
I am in the process of writing my thesis. Okay. I can definitely say that, you know, as I get closer to it, I would love to share, of course, its findings. But definitely some very interesting observations are being made. I think in particular with refugee youth's sense of really strong resiliency and their, you know, their aspiration to pursue education. It seems in my interaction with not just youth for the research, but also for in my volunteering work, that sense of resiliency has always been a very strong factor.
Okay. So how did you get into volunteering with refugees?
So I think this was in 2015. I was informed about the Association for New Canadians, and I was told that, you know, the association would need a helping hand. That year, as we all know, a lot of Syrian refugees were expected to arrive in Canada, with a small number arriving in St. John's. So I signed up and I attended orientation, and I actually had no idea what I was, you know, sort of opening myself up to, which was also interesting because it became a little bit of an adventure, a curious adventure at that point. My first day, I remember it would have been in 2016. I went to the association. The community, the St. John's community and the larger community had donated a lot of clothing and donations, and there was sort of this donation shed in town where we were asked to arrive as volunteers, and a bag was given to me, and it had some children's items in it, perhaps clothes or books, I can't recall. And I was partnered up with a buddy, another volunteer, and we were asked to go and drop it off to a family's house. We were given the address. I believe we were told that they did not speak English at that point. So I remember going up to the door. Now, prior to this, I had lived in the Middle East. So even though I'm not fluent in Arabic, I do understand its nuances and the cultural sort of, the cultural fabric. So when I went up to the door, you know, I knocked and someone opened, and it was the family. And I greeted them in Arabic. I said, you know, peace upon you, and they were absolutely delighted. They often talk about how that little phrase, so understated yet so impactful, really made them feel in that moment very welcomed. And that sort of opened the door, literally, when they asked me to come in. And, you know, that's when it all started. Just coming into this refugee family, former refugee family's home, and experiencing everything that, not just what they have gone through, but an entire, you know, generation or more. I mean, we are looking at more than, I believe the statistics tell us, that about 80 million people are forcibly displaced around the world right now. So.
Yeah, that's a lot, and I could just imagine for someone who couldn't speak English, someone in a new country, in a new place, in a new home, seeing a smiling face as yours and hearing the words of welcome in their own language.
It was definitely impactful, as they mentioned, yes.
So after you delivered this bag of items for them, how did that relationship progress, or did it?
It absolutely did. So I was compelled, like we weren't really obligated to stay back, at least at that point in time, you know, because the assumption was that how could we communicate? But I figured out a way. I had my Google Translate app. So I, whizzed it out, and I used that to communicate with them. And my questions were very simple, like, how are you guys? And it was, it was just sometime in January, just in the beginning. So, we had just passed the new year, and I asked them what they were looking for, if they were looking for something. At first they hesitated to share anything of that sort of information with me, and for good reasons. They wanted to be friends, not ask for anything. But I insisted, and when I kind of asked them, the things that they were looking for were so basic. It would have been like a plate, or like a can opener, or a carpet, a small carpet, because their children were young and they were used to sitting on the floor. They were also playing on the floor. And the apartment that they were placed in was, hardwood flooring. So they needed, these little kinds of things. So I think this is when you start understanding the value and the simplicity of things, and things that we perhaps take for granted, that become immensely valuable once you kind of go through this journey. So beyond that, I promised to stay in touch with them, which I really wanted to, and I visited them. The community that I was living in and the work that I was doing, I was working in a federal government job. The people at work were so generous. They opened up their hearts and they donated a lot of things: clothing, furniture, basic supplies. So I went and dropped it off to this family, and in the process, some people who had donated items expressed an interest to volunteer themselves. So it became sort of this snowball effect where everyone wanted to be a part of this engagement in their own way, in their own capacity. And in doing this, I can't recall exactly how I started meeting more families, but I did. It must have been when I started delivering more of these items from the association. So I started meeting people, started sitting with them. The best part of this whole journey was the copious cups of tea that was always served, and a lot of stories.
Yes.
So that relationship has always stayed.
Yeah. So what was the experience for them like? I mean, I know you've spoken with a number of refugee families since this family you met in 2015. What have they said? What are some of the stories in terms of their experiences here, and how do they cope and integrate? So different.
So I think one of the most beautiful aspect of the story of a refugee is sort of the understanding of how it could be any one of us, to be really honest. When you talk to these individuals and you hear their stories, they were regular folks at some point in their life. They also had a home, they also had a car, they also had travel plans, they were going to school, they were, addressing their day-to-day activities just like many of us. But a calamity befell on them that was beyond their control. And, it almost becomes this understanding that it's a collective punishment of some sort, a misunderstanding between those in governance or those in power. So these people are forced to abandon. It's not even about fleeing. They have to abandon their homes. They have to abandon their legacies, their heritage, their culture, everything that they have identified themselves with. And they are solely in pursuit of safety. And safety can be a broader term. It could mean home. It could mean, having aspirations, the right to live, and much more. So when they come here, when we talk to them, I think it's almost like if you were to imagine it like an onion, you would be peeling at the layers. The first layer would very boldly say refugee. But if you start peeling the layers away, you'll start seeing stories of, a youth, a student, a senior, a mother, a father, a son, a child, whatever it is. That has always stayed, and yeah, I think I think the refugee story is one that needs to be heard. It needs to be brought into the public domain. With the looming climate devastation that is coming towards us, the information, the research tells us that environmental refugees is something that is going to occur, if not has already occurred. So again, this understanding the essence that what does it mean to be a refugee? And if we really want to answer that question, we must sit down with those who have actually experienced that journey themselves and just simply hear their stories. And in that, we can reflect and see a lot of our own selves in them and vice versa.
Right. That is true. I've always said that if a war were to break out here, it would affect both people in government, doctors, people who are in every strata of society will be affected by a war in a country. So sometimes there is the feeling that a refugee is someone who's uneducated or poor, or they are only because of the circumstances that they've gone through.
Yeah, it's almost always it's a systemic a system that is giving all these adjectives that we know today in the public discourse when we think of the word refugee.
That's right, yes. And congratulations, you received the YWCA Women of Distinction Award in 2019 for your work in volunteering.
Thank you. Thank you. But I always say this, that it really does take a village to even be on, to even be a recipient of such an award. I always have to remember, my volunteer buddy who was there with me that day, the conversations that we would have had in the car leading up to meeting that family probably shaped the way we interacted with them. Returning and meeting the people who donated generously, they're also part of this. So much more. I mean, I think, and of course the former refugees themselves. I mean, without them, I wouldn't have learned a lot about myself, to be honest. So really it goes to them.
Right. Well, that's so true, yes. And once you build that relationship and you see the human side of who they are, it makes a difference in how you talk about them, how you interact with them, and you see them as a person, as another human being.
Absolutely.
That's worthy of all what we think is important to us as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, the world is it's absolutely a beautiful place to be. And I mean, in the last year, I've been so focused on sort of documenting and archiving nature as it goes through its cycles, something that I wasn't very conscious of prior to. So in documenting that experience, you start noticing that beyond the human communication and breakdowns in it, life is absolutely gorgeous, and everyone has the right to enjoy the bounty of life. So if we were to go beyond, sort of this dynamic of who said what, who did what, we could actually see, we could document the growth of a dandelion. Like, did you know that a dandelion is considered a weed, but for many it can also be a source of nutrition. People actually eat its leaves and they make jelly out of it. So it's all about perspective. For one, a weed, but for another, a jelly that they can up and they call it like a little box of sunshine. So it's the perspective that can shape how you view the world.
Well, thank you so much, Nabila. I really do appreciate you being here with us.
My absolute pleasure.
And Sharing Our Cultures will be right back. Welcome back to Sharing Our Cultures. Joining me now are Anna and Eric, a Brazilian duo based in St. John's. Welcome to Sharing Our Cultures.
Oh, thank you very much for having us.
Yes, I'm very happy that you're here. Now, you've done a lot of performances, both here in St. John's and outside of Canada. Can you tell us what your performances are usually about and where you've performed?
Yes. We are musicians. We have a duo that mixes folk music and Brazilian music, like bossa nova. And we sing in English and in Portuguese. And we have performed a lot in Brazil. We have performed in Europe as well. And since we moved here, we've been performing a lot in the island, here in Newfoundland. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what we do most, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so how come, I know you're from Brazil, but how did you end up here in St. John's? Tell us about the journey.
Yes, so I came here to study ethnomusicology at MUN. So I did my master's, I'm just finishing it right now, and now I'm starting my PhD as well there. So that's the reason why we came, right?
Yeah.
And we never thought when we moved here that there would be so much music going on, so many, so much art everywhere. So that was a great and pleasant surprise, right?
Yeah, and I'm the wife, so that's why I moved.
Yes, we weren't really sure. We always sort of had Anna and Eric. Were they brother, sister? Oh, no,
Yeah.
we know, it was husband and wife. Okay,
Yeah.
so you came along with him whilst
Yeah.
he came. Okay,
Yeah.
so why did you choose St. John's then to do your studies, your master's
Yes,
program?
the MUN has a very interesting ethnomusicology department and program, and also a very rich folklore department.
Okay.
And so it seems like a very good fit for what I was going to research.
Okay.
And I also wanted to know more about the perspectives that people had here in folklore and ethnomusicology. And I know that Newfoundland has a long tradition of folk music and studies in that area, so that was one of the reasons. Yes.
All right, so whilst he was studying, so Anna, what were you doing?
I'm a voice teacher.
Okay.
I'm a full-time musician and a voice teacher, and I work with music since I was a kid, so that's what I do.
All right, that makes a good pair.
Yeah.
A great pair. Okay, so were you able to have students here when you came?
Yeah, when we moved, all my students from Brazil, they stayed, they continued online, but now I have some students here too.
All right, so
Yeah.
that's great though. I mean,
Yeah.
technology, you can actually, the teacher could be halfway around the world
Exactly.
and still teach.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
It's really nice because right now I have students here in St. John's, students in Ontario, in New York, and in Brazil, in a few different places. So it's really nice, the
Almost.
possibilities.
Yes, almost all around the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so you released 2 singles and an EP. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we have been playing together for many, many years, for 10 years. But always in our solo careers. So as Ana Luisa Ramos and Eric Taylor Escudeiro. But only when we moved here that we started the duo. Because back in Brazil, we used to play with bands. And when we started playing here, we started the duo, like officially. And so last year we recorded in Lewisport, and we have signed with the Citadel House, a Newfoundland label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very fortunate because it was in a music conference by Music NL
Yeah.
that we met Dean Stairs, who is the owner of the label. And coincidentally, he used to live in Brazil
He lived
many
in
years
Brazil
ago.
in the 70s. Yeah.
So we started talking to him, we showed him our musics, and he liked it. So since then he released our EP. He's going to release Anna's new album, and we're also going to record our second album with him.
Yeah.
So they're being very supportive. So it's great.
Well, congratulations are in order then. A second
you.
single and another one on the way. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So what is your inspiration for the music that you create?
Yeah, I think the environment around
Yeah.
us. For me, like nature has always been a very good inspiration because nature is constantly changing and it's kind of endless. If you start looking at the details, you see how many there are, and you always find something new. So it's always a very good source of inspiration. And here in Newfoundland, as we moved, and nature is so different, and we have the spaces, we have the change of the seasons, and so that's very inspirational, I guess. And also the music that we've been listening here, and the people that we meet, all of that works as inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Right. So do you think you'll be able to blend some of your music with the local Newfoundland music, or get together with some local musicians? Has that happened yet?
Yeah, I think it's already happening actually.
Yeah, it's happening.
Because, we've been making some music with Newfoundland musicians, some good friends of ours. And yes, the more we listen to it, it starts to become natural. We start to learn how to appreciate how to sing, and you start incorporating that. So this is something that we would like to do more, right?
More, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like for our next album, we're going to have some surprises. Let's see.
Yes, I can't wait. It's always so fascinating. Now, you mentioned recording in Louisport. How much of the province have you seen? Have you traveled around? And
Not as much as we would like because of the pandemic and all. We have been living here for 2 years, and then we have this Numageddon, and then the pandemic. But we've been to Louisport, to the Bering Peninsula, and also
We've traveled the Irish Loop as well.
the Irish Loop.
So we've seen a little bit.
Yeah, we've been to Brigas, Harbor Grace.
That area.
That
yeah.
area.
We saw
yeah.
some sandy beaches near Musgrave Harbor and Lumsden, so that was good.
But there are so many beautiful places that we need to explore.
yeah, so you got to stay and explore it. We would like you to stay here.
We'd love to. We'd love to. And there's so much to see. And then we have to travel to Labrador because this is one of my goals as well.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. Since before we moved here, he wants to visit Labrador.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to see.
Yes. There's a lot to see. It's a big land. It's a great province, and of course, from various places, you can see the difference in the landscape. You get to meet the people as well.
Exactly. Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
So, have you been able to find a Brazilian community here?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Bigger
Tell
than
us
we
about that.
expected.
Oh,
There's a huge Brazilian community here.
okay.
Yeah.
And we made some really nice friends here.
Yeah, and it's nice because in our concerts, often like people, Brazilian people will hear that Brazilian duo is playing, so they show up and we start we meet more and more Brazilian people.
Yeah.
Yesterday we met 4 new Brazilian.
Yeah.
So it's very nice because it also there's an instant connection there, I guess.
Yes.
So it's fun. Yeah.
And it's great that you're here because the Brazilians who are here may not walk down the street and hear people speaking Portuguese, but you're here and it makes them sort of feel it's a place they belong as well because they go to a concert and they hear a song in their own language.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, that's really a great thing of value to have you here and to be able to make those kinds of connections with people.
We heard that yesterday, actually. One of the girls that we met, she said, "Oh, I felt so good to hear some Portuguese," because I think that people move here, and because we're musicians, we tend to know more people because of the events that we play in. But a lot of people, they come here and they have a smaller social group. So I think some people, they feel a little bit isolated, I guess. So that's in those events can be good.
And even because of the pandemic, right?
Yes, exactly.
So it's harder to meet new people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because, as you said, with music, it really opens doors. It's a universal concept because people from all over the world would enjoy music and love. I mean, I love your music, and I'm all the way from Africa. So that's a great experience. So you've been able to connect and get some support, as you said, from both the provincial or municipal, governments.
Both of them have been very supportive.
Okay.
And I think that's very important because when you arrive here, you don't know many people, you don't know how things work.
And everything is different.
Everything is different.
Everything. Yes. Like the way that you open the door is different.
Yes.
Basic things.
Yes.
We've never used the thermostat.
Yes, we had to learn how to do that. So the simplest things can be complicated. So I think that
when you go in the supermarket, all the products, they are different.
Yeah.
The names are different, so everything is different.
And nothing is written in Portuguese.
Oh, no.
Thank you, Anna and Eric, for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We also thank Nabila. And now we're going to leave you with a song by Anna and Eric.
He joined the sun and the sea in the prettiest twilight where we find eternity. And now the future is back and our best years have passed. Son, I have grown so old, but he's the same. Look at that. There's a smile within me from the old sunny mornings There's a loneliness I love that's disappeared without warning.
A esperança morreu, seguiu o sol e o mar. Foi encontrar a eternidade que sim esteve por lá. E o futuro voltou e o nosso tempo passou. Filho, eu envelheci, mas ele nada mudou.
E o sorriso se abrindo e o sol de domingo. Eu amei a solidão, mas ela não quis nada comigo. There are so many flowers that I just lose track. I see so many flowers on my wall that I just lose track of time, lose track of time,
Lose track of time.
lose track of time,
Lose track of time.
lose track of time,
Lose track of time.
lose track of time.
Lose track of time.
If you want convenience, Marie's Mini Mart is here for you. A one-stop shop for a variety of products, home-style breads, sandwiches, plus check out our freshly baked artisan breads and single-serve desserts exclusively at our in-store bakery on Frecker Drive. With 25 locations, wherever you go, there we are.
If you have a comment about this program, we'd love to hear it. Email or call us, or send us your feedback through social media.
Watching hockey just got a power play with NHL Center Ice and Super Sports Pack. With up to 37 out-of-market NHL games a week, you'll always catch your favorite team no matter where you live. Whether it's big matchups you're looking for or following your top fantasy picks, it's all here. NHL Center Ice, part of the Rogers Super Sports Pack. All this for only $35.99.